Well, today I am going to discuss on a research paper titled Adverse Events Associated with Yoga. This paper was published in 2013, and why I chose this paper was I wanted to understand what are the adverse effects of yoga which have been reported in the research. The aim of this study was to systematically assess published case reports and case series regarding adverse events which are associated with yoga. This research was motivated by anecdotal evidence in the various media which questioned the safety of yoga. So this led the researchers look into detail what is the adverse effects reported while practicing yoga. The researchers systematically screened electronic databases such as Medline, PubMed, Scopus, Cambase, Indomed, and the cases database from February 1969 to 2013. Eligibility reports meeting criteria were considered in the study. And the practice was considered yoga if explicitly named in the report. The literature search resulted in inclusion of 35 case reports and 2 case series reporting a total of 76 unique cases of yoga associated adverse events. So from the reports, they found out 76 cases of adverse events reported in yoga. And these were considered for a timeline from 1969 to 2012 end. Most of the cases originated from USA, 19 reports, followed by Canada, 1. The United Kingdom was 2, Germany was 1, Switzerland 1, Italy 2, Denmark 1, India 5, Nepal 1, China 1, Taiwan, Korea, Australia 1. The majority of the cases were female, 51 female and 25 male. This roughly aligns with the general characteristics of yoga practitioners, which the authors say is around 75% are female. And the mean age of the cases was around 44 years. 10 cases had preconditions associated with adverse events. These include glaucoma, 3 cases, osteopenia, 3 cases, alongside 1 case each of asthma, psychosis, and affective disorder. 1 case also had a congenital hyperelasticity of connective tissue, which may have facilitated the adverse event. Practices associated with adverse event. The most frequently cited practices were pranayama, and there were 4 cases of it. Hatha yoga, there were 3 cases of it. Bikram yoga, there was 3 cases of it. Now looking at the specific postures and techniques, breathing techniques, the most common practices cited in the study were headstand or shirshasana. Practiced in 10 cases, they had adverse events. Shoulder stand or sarvangasana, practiced in 3 cases, had adverse events. And variations of lotus position like Padmasana had reported 3 cases of adverse event. Same is the case with forceful breathing techniques like Kapalbhati, which had 3 cases of adverse events. Kriyas, in that voluntary vomiting, Kunjal Kriya, what we call, 2 cases had that adverse events reported. In 10 cases, the practice associated with adverse effect was performed under supervision, while in 4 cases it was unsupervised. This was a very detailed study which the authors have conducted. Now let's look into the type of adverse events which were recorded. The adverse events predominantly affected 3 systems: musculoskeletal systems, 27 cases, and around 35.5% of adverse effect was on musculoskeletal system. Injuries include fractures, example, epicele, separation of distal tibia, vertebral compression fractures in osteopenia patients, ligament tears, joint injuries, lumbar disc annular tears, and myositis ossificans. In terms of nervous system, 14 cases were there, around 18%. Events included peripheral neuropathy, 3 cases, stroke, 3 cases, and transient headache, 7 cases. Neuropathy cases included yoga foot drop and sciatica neuropathy. Eyes, 9 cases, around 12%. Events included acute glaucoma, worsening of chronic glaucoma, and orbital paresis or vein occlusion. 8 of 10 cases that practiced headstand reported orbital adverse events, possibly related to the twofold increase in intraocular pressure, which was induced due to the headstand. Other reported events included pneumothorax or pneumomediasthenium, 3 cases, and rectus sheath hematoma. The clinical outcomes of the 76 cases, 52 had reported clinical outcome, full recovery, 15 cases, around 19.7%, partial recovery, 9 cases, no recovery, 1, and there was a single fatality reported. And the authors recommend that the review concluded that yoga is not without risk. Only a few serious adverse events have been reported in healthy individuals, especially considering the large number of practitioners worldwide. Therefore, there is no need to discourage yoga practice for healthy people. For people suffering from various medical ailments, need to consult their doctors before practicing yoga. However, the authors provide several recommendations for safe practice. Qualified instruction. Yoga should be practiced carefully under the guidance of a qualified instructor. Beginners should avoid extreme practices, and this includes advanced postures such as headstand, lotus position, as well as advanced breathing techniques like forceful breathing, Kapalabhati. Advanced practices to avoid, practices like voluntary vomiting, Kunjal Kriya, you drink the water, put your finger in the throat and take out the water. Such type of practices should be avoided and should be avoided completely, particularly if you are having any ailments associated with the track. So this study was a very detailed study which looked at the various adverse events And from this, we conclude that yoga is safe for most, but if you suffer from any uh, medical conditions, it's good to meet your doctor and then practice this technique of yoga.